samsaradava nalalidaloka Sranaya karuna guna gunatvam Praptasya kalyana guna navasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyan Manasorasena Romancha Kampa Shutaranga Vajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingarathan Mandiramarjanado Yuktasya bhaktam saniyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Chaturvida Shri Bhagavat Prasado Swadana Triptan Haribaksha Sangran Kritraiva Triptim Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Shri Radhika Madhava Yodapara Madhurya Leela Gunarupanam Nam Pratikshanasvadana Lolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Nikunjayo no rati kheli sedhai ya yali vir yukti rapekshaniya Tatrati daksha rati valabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam साक्षादारित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे उक्तस्तथा भायतेव साधि किन्तु प्रभोर्या प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् यस्य प्रसादा भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादा न गति कुतोऽपि जयंस्तु वांस्तस्य यशत्रिसाद्यं वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशधारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद चैतन्य जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद चैतन्य नित्यानंद प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Nilamadva, Radha Nilamadva, Radhe. Jai Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jai Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha. Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramhamsa Parvitaka Acharya Ashtota Ashkata Shri Srimad Divine Grace Aparchana Vinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Vibhiti Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramhamsa Parvitaka Acharya Ashtota Shri Srimad Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vinda Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridasa Kuru Ki Jai. Pramiseko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Marga Dham Ki Jai. Shri Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Shri Yamuna Devi Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glory to assembled devotees. All glory to assembled devotees. All glory to assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Praladadayine Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha Shilatankanakalaye Ito Narsimha Paratom Narsimha Yato Yato Yamitatom Narsimha Bahir Narsimha Hrudaye Narsimha Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapaje Tava Kara Kamalavare Adbhuta Shrangam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringa Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jagadisha Hare देव जय नरसिंह देव। जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद। जय 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 प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद। जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव। लक्ष्मी नरसिंहदेव भगवान की जय। प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः। तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः नमो नमः। तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः। तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः। राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो कृष्ण सेवा भो अभिलाषी। राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो अभिलाषी। राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो अभिलाषी। जे तुम्हारा शरण लो तेरा वांछा पूर्ण हो। जे तुम्हारा शरण लो तेरा वांछा पूर्ण हो। कृपा कृपा करे करो तारे वृंदावन वासी कृपा करे करो तारे वनवासी मोरा विलास कुंजे दियो मोरा विलास कुंजे दियो नायने हेरिवो सादा जुगल रूपरासी नायने हेरिवो सादा जुगल रूपरासी ये निवेदन धरो सखीरनुगत करो धनाधरो सखीरनुगत करो सेवाधिकार दिए करो निज दासी दीना कृष्ण दासे को ये जैन मोरा होय दासे को ये जैन मोरा हो श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा ये नबासी गोविंद प्रेमे सदा जैन बासी श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा जैन बासी श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे बासी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणं पदे पदे निकानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणं पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणं पदे पदे निकानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणं पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणं पदे पदे ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणं पदे हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Vrinda Devi 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 Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev वृंदादेव तुलसी महारानी की जय वृंदाये तुलसी देव्यै प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति प्रतिदेव्यै सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः तुलसी देव्यै प्रियाय केशवस्य च कृष्ण भक्ति प्रतिदेवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः वृंदाये तुलसी देव्यै प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति प्रतिदेवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः वृंदाये तुलसी देव्यै प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति प्रतिदेवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः वृंदाये तुलसी देव्यै प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति प्रतिदेवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः
Advaita Grantaraj Ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi Haribo. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So today we're going to have our Rath Yatra festival. This will be the first of 2 or 3 of them. And we're also going to have a booth at the Derby Days. And there'll be a lot of people. And we'll be able to also advertise Ananda Mela and our Unite for Goodness project. So I just want to speak about the Unite for Goodness, and then we will stop and go to the Derby Days to get ready for the Rath Yatra and the dance performance, Haribol. So, the Unite for Goodness is to teach people to live in the mode of goodness. Now, that's not the perfection of life, but it's the first step toward the perfection of life. And the whole purpose is to unite for goodness, but actually it's mundane goodness. But if we practice properly with the help of bona fide gurus, and of course learning more and more about Krishna, it can transform into transcendental goodness, or Visuddha-sattva. And that means that one will be liberated from the cycle of birth and death, even in this world, even in this body. So the goal is to attain transcendental goodness. So I've written something about this. I'm still working on it, but I'll read what I have so far. It says, Unite for Goodness is a collective movement to evolve the consciousness of all human beings to live always in the mundane mode of goodness and progressively achieve transcendental goodness. A mode is the way or manner in which something occurs or is experienced, expressed, or done. Northwest Sheriff, 501c3 Washington State nonprofit, promotes actions in goodness to encourage everyone to achieve the following benefits: kindness, honesty, virtue, generosity, compassion, empathy, charitable, patience, tolerant, pure-hearted thoughts and acts, a clean mind free of nasty thoughts, freedom from lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy, and crazy behavior, self-control, peaceful, respectful, friendly, and regulated by goodness in daily habits of thinking and acting. It is much easier to attain a sustained, happy, and peaceful life by cultivating the quality of goodness in mind and action. The culture of goodness can bring people together, regardless of ethnicity, race, religion, politics, or gender orientation. This is a natural result due to harmonious relationships evolved by sharing the above-mentioned qualities, which engender mutual respect and affectionate friendship. According to the ancient Vedic text, the Bhagavad Gita, there are 3 conditional modes of nature that control the activities of human beings. They are the modes of mundane goodness, passion, and ignorance. These modes are supernatural forces that control the actions of people who think that sense gratification or self-indulgence is the goal of life. When people use their senses, mind, and intelligence to dominate and exploit the resources of nature for their material satisfaction, they unwittingly violate a fundamental law of nature, which is explained in the Ishopanishad Mantra 1, an ancient Vedic scripture. It says, everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by God. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. If people understand this fundamental law of nature and abide by it, they can avoid most material problems besieging humanity today. This ancient wisdom is the basis of a minimalist lifestyle without infringing this law of nature. It is the only sustainable way to live in this beleaguered world of misery and misfortune caused by people addicted to self-destructive behaviors that impact themselves and others. When a person voluntarily decides to use their senses, including the mind and intelligence, to serve God, one can be liberated from the dictates of the modes and their negative influences. As long as one is functioning under the control of the fluctuating modes of mundane goodness, passion, and ignorance, it is difficult to understand and abide by all the laws of nature. It is only when one comes to the stage of living consistently in the mode of mundane goodness that one can begin to understand. Eventually, one can progress to transcendental goodness and become completely free of the debilitating modes of nature. It is impossible to transcend while one is influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance. When one lives and acts influenced by the mode of mundane goodness, one learns to avoid sinful acts summarized by the 4 pillars of sins: meat eating, intoxication, gambling and speculation, and illicit sex. There are 4 aspects of universal spirituality: mercy, cleanliness, truthfulness, and austerity. Mercy is adulterated by intoxication. Truthfulness is compromised by gambling and speculation. Cleanliness is contaminated by illicit sex. By development of false pride, human beings assume that animals do not have a soul, and thus they can be killed and eaten. When these 4 aspects of universal spirituality are not followed, people become influenced by debilitating modes of passion and ignorance. The following verses from the Bhagavad Gita summarizes the conditioning of the 3 modes of nature and the benefits of living in the mode of goodness, progressing to transcendental goodness. The mode of mundane goodness, being purer than others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful actions. However, those situated in that mode may still be conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. This verse explains the positive aspects of acting in the mode of goodness. Yet, one may still be conditioned by a higher grade of material happiness and mixed mundane and spiritual knowledge. It is necessary to be promoted to transcendental goodness to eventually be freed completely from all material desires for sense gratification by replacing them with pure desires to please God. This mindset of living in progressive goodness will liberate one from the cycle of birth, old age, disease, and death to qualify for a return to the spiritual world. The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, and because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material fruitive actions. Fruitive activities are selfish acts to please oneself without any thought of pleasing God. Know that the mode of darkness, born of ignorance, is the delusion of all embodied living entities. The results of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. And from the mode of ignorance, develop foolishness, madness, and illusion. Real benefits of the mode of goodness. Sacrifice performed according to the directions of Scriptures, as a matter of duty, by those who desire no reward, is the nature of goodness. Real sacrifice is done without any desire for personal benefit. It should be offered uniquely for the pleasure and glorification of God. It should be done as a matter of duty. This is sacrifice in the mode of goodness. The understanding by which one knows what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, what is to be feared and what is not to be feared, what is binding and what is liberating, is in the mode of goodness. That determination, which is unbreakable, which is sustained with steadfastness by devotion for God, and which thus controls the activities of the mind, life, and senses, is determination in the mode of goodness. That which in the beginning may be just like poison, but at the end is just like nectar, and which awakens one to self-realization, is said to be happiness in the mode of goodness. Foods dear to those in the mode of goodness increase the duration of life, purify one's existence, and give strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. Such foods are juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart. Of sacrifices, the sacrifice performed according to the direction of Scripture as a matter of duty by those who desire no reward is of the nature of goodness. Austerity of the body consists in worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmanas, or priests, the spiritual master, and superiors like the father and mother, and in cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and nonviolence. Austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting Vedic literature. And satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence are the austerities of the mind. This threefold austerity, performed with transcendental faith by men not expecting material benefits, but engaged only for the sake of the Supreme, is called austerity in goodness. Charity given out of duty, without expectation of return, at the proper time and place, and to a worthy person, is considered to be in the mode of goodness. So that's where I stopped. It's still a work in progress. But this explains more or less what the Unite for Goodness is all about. And it is let's say, a movement by which people of all different religions, all different ethnicities, all different concepts can join together and improve the quality of relationships and their work and their thought, and in every way strive for eventually transcendental goodness, where they're liberated from the cycle of birth and death, and they can go back to Godhead. So this is a short summary. It's still a work in process, and but by the time Ananda Mela it should be finished, and it'll be published, and then we can start trying to get people to come to the mode of goodness. Is there any questions?
So the primary goal is just to get them, I mean, this gives the complete philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, I still have to work on it some more,
Correct.
but yes,
But,
of goodness, living in the mode of goodness.
But they also understand that that's just, I mean, those who are serious, if they read this, they will understand that, okay, the first step is what the whole world at least wants to aspire for is the material goodness.
Yes, mundane goodness.
Mundane goodness, and then there is the journey from there
Yes,
to transcendental goodness.
to go to transcendental goodness.
And then maybe, I mean, it's probably called out, or maybe more will be called out, but the difference between the material goodness and mundane, spiritual, transcendental goodness.
That's explained here. It says,
what ought to be done, what ought to be done. That's
yeah, it says the mode of mundane goodness, being purer than the others, meaning passion and ignorance, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. However, those situated in that mode may still be conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. And then I explain that. This verse explains the positive aspects of acting in the mundane mode of goodness. Yet, one may still be conditioned by a higher grade of material happiness and mixed mundane and spiritual knowledge. it is necessary to be promoted to transcendental goodness to eventually be freed completely from all material desires for sense gratification by replacing them with pure desires to please God. This mindset of living in progressive goodness will liberate one from the cycle of birth, old age, disease, and death to qualify for a return to the spiritual world. So mundane goodness, the only drawback about it is that one can become conditioned by a sense of happiness and superiority due to knowledge. And then that, of course, it would be it would still condition the person to stay in the material world. It's only when they give up all desires for what you would call mundane achievements and completely dedicate themselves to serving Krishna or God, completely free from all material desires for sense gratification and replacing them with pure desires to please God. So this mindset of not having any material desire, simply spiritual desires to please God, will elevate one to transcendental goodness.
Could we maybe some example, because I think we understand that
The example is like the scientist or the philosopher who have a good life. They're mostly following moral principles, but they have a sense of superiority due to their happiness and success. Right.
Correct.
So therefore, that keeps them chained to the cycle of birth and death. It's when they attain what's called this equality and oneness. Equality means they see that every living entity has a relationship with God, so that sense of superiority would go away at that point. And number two, oneness, they understand that they are qualitatively one with God, but quantitatively different. Therefore, their oneness with God is never going to change the fact that they're always subordinate to the Lord, right? But they have certain qualities that are coexistent with God, such as eternality and so forth. But there are certain things that they can never emulate. So they always remain subordinate to God, but one in essential quality of eternity.
So, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
So basically, we are trying to the spiritual goodness. I mean, so mundane goodness. Do you think that it's kind of a stepping stone for elevate to the other stone, right?
Yes.
So person, if not in even mundane goodness, it's very hard for him to.
Well, there's no hope there.
Yeah, there's no hope. Okay.
There's no hope.
So when we are targeting people, we, I think you last time explained, like, when you start talking, you know which mode he is in. So it's easy for you to do whether you should go ahead or not. Like,
look, this is not difficult to convince people because everybody knows that society today is going in the wrong direction. Look what happened. Little kids are killing other kids and people, right? It's something that hardly ever happened before. And there's tremendous amount of what you would call tragedies happening because of the weather and because of people acting really low class, and therefore people can see it all around them that there are problems. So here's a way to put the finger on the cause of these problems. And the cause is people are selfishly acting for sense gratification and forgetting God. So when they give up this preoccupation with sense gratification and transfer their consciousness to pleasing the senses of God, right? God is a person, so if we please his senses rather than pleasing our own senses, then we will not only be satisfied, but we will give up all bad habits. So, and that's why we come back to the original fundamental law of nature, which is the first mantra of the Ishopanishad, which says, everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by God. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. So this first mantra of the Ishopanishad is the fundamental law of nature that everyone is violating. They're accepting way more than what they actually need, and by doing that, some people are lacking their needs, and other people have too many assets, right? So the difference between the haves and the have-nots, between the ultra-rich and the very poor, this is not a normal thing, because God has set aside for everyone their minimal needs. If they accept the minimum and use everything above that in the service of God, then this envy, hatred, jealousy will go away, and people will live in a very, let's say, civilized way with each other. Why is it that someone is very poor and someone is very, very rich? Well, there's karma involved. But if they follow the rules and regulations of spiritual life, what are those? There's mercy, cleanliness, truthfulness, and austerity. Then everyone will live a good life, everyone will cooperate, and everyone will develop good qualities. So when you violate these four fundamental universal principles of spirituality, mercy, truthfulness, cleanliness, and austerity, then people have problems, and there's class differences, and there's envy, and all these things evolve. So living a minimalist life is very important. That doesn't mean you can't make $1 million a day. You can, but you're going to spend most of that money helping others become Krishna conscious, because your minimal needs are much less than $1 million a day. You know, when you live on minimal, as a minimalist, your needs couldn't cost more than maybe $50 or $100 a day. And if you make $1 million, that leaves a lot more money that you could use to help people become Krishna conscious. So the basic problem today, I mean, I'll give you an example. There's the richest man in the state of Illinois, where there's Chicago, right? He just left the state. He's moving to Florida because he said there's too much violence here. I have to take my family away. I have to take my business away. He's the richest man in the whole state, right? But when he left, he gave $5 million to this reverend, this black minister, who has made a vow to live and sleep on his roof of his house until he collects $35 million to open up a cultural center to help all the black people, especially the kids that are ruining their lives and being killed every day in Chicago. Well, that doesn't mean the problem is going to be solved by $5 million or even $35 million. But you see, people are realizing, wait a minute, some places are too dangerous to live. You can't keep your family there anymore because there's murder going on every day. Every day in Chicago, people are getting murdered. And a lot of people are just innocent of getting murdered because there's people shooting guns all over the place, and especially in the black neighborhoods. I don't know if you know about that or not. Yeah. So this guy's the richest guy in the whole state of Illinois. He just moved out with his whole business. You know, he moved to Florida. So this is the problem, that in the major cities, especially usually where there are Democrats in charge of the city, there is violence, there's like a lot of murders, there's theft, they've defunded the police, so there's massive mayhem going on in these cities. Now we're not feeling it here because they haven't defunded the police here yet, but they have in Seattle. And Seattle has a big problem. Downtown Seattle has a big problem. Yeah. So you see this breakdown of society due to all the nonsense that's being taught in schools and in the whole educational system, etc. And many people are putting their finger on this now. They're saying, you know, the education system is no good. They're openly speaking like that now. You know. So, and then also you have pornography, and you have all these Bollywood, Hollywood movies, and there's guns in every one of those movies now. And there's murders and killing in every one of the movies. They don't make any good movies anymore. They're all about guns and shooting. So there's a breakdown of culture. Now, you might not experience it so much here in Sammamish, but you go to other places, you'll see it's a serious problem. Okay. So here's the solution. Unite for goodness.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So the other day, somebody was interested to know about, hey, what is the lifestyle that you follow, and she said, and I said, and this is kind of how it is, like the way we eat, the way we follow, all the principles and all. And then the premise which she started was, she said, I am very interested in this, but I'm not religious. I do meditation. I like humanism.
Unite for goodness.
Yeah.
Is not forcing anyone to be religious or not religious.
Yeah. So my question.
These are scientific laws of nature.
No, actually, yeah. So my question is, somebody comes with, starts with that premise that they are not religion. So should we just stop them and say that, not stop them, but we should stop at just how can they be in the path of material goodness and not talk about how to get into the transcendental goodness?
Yeah, you can talk about like that.
Yeah, and then just not worry about how to connect with God and what we are doing.
Yeah, we cannot eliminate God, but we're just using the word God. We're not saying Krishna. We're not saying you have to chant Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
You can be any religious or you could be not religious, but living in the mode of goodness makes sense.
So I can actually share my experience. So when in the Sankirtan, one Chinese girl when I was interacting with, so she felt more interested when I said what we are doing here is nothing to do with any specific religion. It's not about Hinduism or Judaism. Yes. So the moment I talked about when I started, then she felt more comfortable and opened up rather than going on the defensive. Because once you start talking about it a little bit it's a religious thing, or we are going God, and then they'll kind of take a back step, and sometimes they're not even interested to, because they have some prejudice or some back of their mind. So I think what you are talking about, on what I understood, is basically this is nothing to do with we are teaching people on the religious stuff. We are just, in general, we are talking, right, for spiritual goodness. God concept is there, but it's not any specific religion.
Right.
Yeah. Just one final. Yeah, Maharaj. So what I was saying was, it's also about consciousness, because at the end of the day, the way of life and what we are going to do is to elevate our consciousness so that we can...
Here, look, you didn't hear the beginning. It says, Northwest Share, 501c3 Washington State nonprofit, promotes actions in goodness to encourage everyone to achieve the following benefits: kindness, honesty, virtue, generosity, compassion, empathy, charitable, patience, tolerant, pure-hearted thoughts and acts, a clean mind free of nasty thoughts, freedom from lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy, and crazy behavior, self-control, peaceful, respectful, friendly, and regulated by goodness in daily habits of thinking and acting. It is much easier to attain a sustained, happy, and peaceful life by cultivating the quality of goodness in mind and action. The culture of goodness can bring people together, regardless of ethnicity, race, religion, politics, or gender orientation. This is a natural result due to harmonious relationships evolved by sharing the above-mentioned qualities, which engender mutual respect and affectionate friendship. We could stop right there, right in the beginning. and not write anything else if you want. Huh?
That resonate with a lot of people.
You're right. I mean, we could stop right there.
Depending upon the mood of the person, right? I mean, again, if that person looks to be like more spiritual and interested, maybe we can go further. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Maharaj, one more question on the mode of goodness on charity. In 17.20, Prabhupada mentioned very clearly. He says, charity, especially my doubt is on the poor. When you give the charity to the poor people, because
So it's Bhagavad Gita 17:20. Charity given out of duty, without expectation of return, at the proper time and place, and to a worthy person, is considered to be in the mode of goodness. Is that what you're talking about?
yes, Maharaj, in the purport, Prabhupada mentioned charity to the poor is sometimes given out of compassion, but if the poor man is not worthy giving charity to, then there is no spiritual advancement. They say why Prabhupada is saying like that. See, then that means to say when we give the charity to poor people, how we will know whether he is a worthy person?
Well, it depends what you're giving. Like, for example, some guy has a sign, at the street light, and it says, Vietnam vet, anything helps, God bless. So you think, oh, the poor guy. So you give him $10, right? And he says, oh, thank you, thank you very much. Then he goes with the $10 to the 7-Eleven and buys some beer. Now, what's going to happen to you? You get 1/6 of the karma. So you haven't really helped that person, and you haven't helped yourself either, because you're going to get 1/6 of the karma, you see. So instead of giving him $10, you can stop and talk to the person and say, look, here's a vegetarian burrito for you. You don't have to tell him it's prasadam, right? And you say, and you can come to our food truck, and give him a card where he can come to the food truck. And you can get some free clothes also, and maybe even some medical help. So at this point, you haven't given him any money. You gave him prasadam. You gave him a chance to have more prasadam and to get some help in the form of clothing or some medical services. So you don't get any karma that way. But you just give the guy $10 and he goes and buys a bottle of beer, you get 1/6 of the sin.
Yeah, and one more question on the same.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, Maharaj. This is for
So you have to be careful what charity you're giving.
Yeah, this is in the street. We should be careful. But there are
anywhere you have.
Even organization also.
What do you mean organization?
Say some organization come back and say, we will do for the war going on, please. Because in offices they send an email. Oh, there is a war going on, Russia and Ukraine. Why can't you support? Something like that. The emails will be.
Well, we are supporting. ISKCON is in Ukraine supporting.
Okay. Oh, donate to ISKCON.
Yeah.
Okay, just.
Yes.
Okay. And in the same sloka, right time and right place. When we give a donation, we need to see right time and right place. That I didn't follow, Maharaj.
Well, right place means where you are inspiring people to come to the food truck, or inspiring people to come to a festival, or inspiring people, right, to in somehow or other come in contact with devotees. That's the right place. And right time is, during the daytime, where there's light and there's, nighttime usually the demons come out. So we usually work during the daytime. Okay, it's the right places where you're leading people to associate with devotees. Okay? You're not going into a bar and saying, here, my friends, you have to live in the mode of goodness. That's not going to work. Right? Nobody's interested in the mode of goodness in the bar or the casino. Yeah. Go ahead.
Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, so the modes of material nature is Tama, Raja and Sattva. Then I'm trying to understand when we define mundane goodness versus spiritual goodness, because these three terms are part of material nature.
Of course, but that's a stepping stone to going to transcendental goodness. If a person stays always in the mode of passion and ignorance, they'll never understand anything. It's only in the mundane mode of goodness that they begin to understand. You see? And then if you say in sustained mundane goodness in the association of devotees, it'll eventually turn into transcendental goodness. But see, we're trying to get people at least come to the mode of goodness where they can begin to understand higher order principles of life. A person in mode of passion is not interested. They say, I'm not interested in this. Tell me how I can make more money. That's the only thing I'm interested in. And how I can have more sense gratification. So that's the mode of passion. And mode of ignorance, they're more interested in hallucinating and sleeping and eating junk and wasting their time playing pinball machines and video games and things like that. That's the mode of ignorance. So you're not going to be able to convince people like that to control their senses and their mind. It's only when they come to the mundane mode of goodness they begin to understand. So, if it's impossible to bring them to pure goodness, then you have no hope. So, at least you have some hope if you bring them to mundane goodness. You see the point? So you might say, "Oh, we're Krishna conscious. We're only interested in pure goodness." Oh, okay, but you'll never make any devotees like that. Not that you are in pure goodness. That's another issue. So you have to have a progressive process. So the first progression is bringing people up from ignorance to passion to mundane goodness, and then keeping them in mundane goodness, but with the right association and right guidance, so they come to transcendental goodness. But see, we can't say all this right away. I mean, we give the general idea, but we can't say it all right away, because then they'll say, "Oh, this is a religious thing. Yeah. So I don't want to be part of any religion." You see? Very tricky world we're living in.
And
okay, well, I don't want to do this too much more, because we have to go and be on time today. We have to, at the latest 9 o'clock, we have to be ready. I'm going to go right now.
So Maharaj, you have those straps. We loaded the speakers to your truck.
What?
We have loaded all the sound system on your truck.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, we're going to
We have
strap
to
it and
strap
then
it.
you can strap.
Yeah.
We have some 5-10 minutes.
Okay. Haribo. Don't try and close the back.
So is there a special mechanism?
I'll tell you how to do it.
Okay, yeah, we do that.
Someone was trying to close it and break it yesterday.
We thought we just close it just like a regular truck.
No. This is an old truck. There's nothing regular about it.